And if we were actually to like push, I could just envision like if we were to like push back or create support against something like CBS, who's totally exploiting us, and obviously like exploiting Charlottesville residents outside of just students, but like we would face like possible eviction because of like at any moment if they wanted to, they could say you're living in our like illegally, we can evict you, whatever. So since like we're just like in this like weird position of buying into sort of these exploitative processes, but also being exploited and all these things. And so yeah, I'm just wondering like how, if anyone has like ideas or has seen it done really well where students have been able to be enveloped into this like organizing and tenant process effectively. CBS is just like one of the, yeah, it's a rental company, and it has, I would say it does most of the renting for student housing around the like CBS, Preston, or sorry, the 14th Preston area, Rugby Road area, yeah.
Anyone want to take that question?
No, I do have one thing to say though. Unfortunately, what happens is students get aware of what's going on when they're like in their third year, and that's the problem. You know, I would hope that someone can really visualize and say, hey, let's look deep down at the first year students and give them the knowledge about what's going on. But I know first year students are trying to figure out where they want to be, you know, but that's with anything, what I found about university students, they don't get the knowledge until third year, and that's too late, you know. So my whole thing is organize around your students and make sure you reach down to your younger students to give them the information they need about housing, you know, and to give them information and work with local folks like FAR, legal aid, to find out what you need to do.
I can't speak particularly to a university, but personal experience, I know when I first started fighting, I was already tired from the fight, from the trauma, from everything. All I knew looking in the foresight was that I didn't want to see any other families experience what I experienced. So you kind of have to pioneer what you don't have available. You're virtually going to have to create it. And for the fear of being pushed out, I would say you kind of got to be like the Underground Railroad. Do it secretively until you grow in numbers, if that would help, and just gather as many people on the same accord and just build the momentum that way. Is the best thing I could advise. In Nashville, it's not any students really, I guess, on that front. What we see with the students, particularly in the Vandy area, their parents are paying their rent, and they're in $2,000 condos per whatever a month, so they don't have those problems. So I don't see that really with the university where we live at too much, where they need to organize. Here you go, Masita.
So, yo, I just want to add one thing.
You write it down.
At Georgia State University,
Oh, Lord.
the students have been very involved. And one is there are a sector of the students that are in the same boat. And they're going to live in these communities, and they're going to be displaced, right? And they don't have affordable rent. So they're really we see them as part of the same class, right? So there's some common interest. What has been successful in Atlanta is, one, the community was organized and had an organization called Housing Justice League. And they had tenant unions, so the community was organized. That means the community can develop a plan and then reach out to the students. So the grassroots group developed a plan and built a coalition of many different forces. The students were part of that coalition. And the students they had groups, they had organization, and the students would participate in direct actions against the university and put demands out. And demands around not only what should happen in the community, but what should benefit students, right? and the community and the students were on the same page. So it can happen. And students, if you look at victories, USC and other victories where we've won community benefits agreements, students have been with us, right? And we have been united. So students play an important role. Given what Harold was saying, given that y'all are temporary, your organization isn't temporary.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have students against
Yeah.
displacement, that organization doesn't have to end every 4 years, right? So you train the new people, they come in,
Each
there's
one,
a fighting institution that's in place. Same way in communities, you're building an organization, the organization has to last, and its vision and principles.
So I think those are inspiring words on which to end. Thank you very much to all of our panelists.
She had a question back there.
Oh,
Just had one question.
okay, go ahead.
Well, in my neighborhood, you know, they built a lot of houses years ago. And the community couldn't afford to get to these houses.
That's right.
So I know these were people like the doctors and the nurses and whoever else that moved in my neighborhood. Now, I have watched this through the years, because I've been in the house 25 years. Different people keep moving in and out. Now, if they buy these houses, or they buy them and rent them to people as they come in. So now the community, my community, people that want to move into the community can't afford them. So it's not illegal. That's the question. Thank you. I mean, it's serious.
Maybe some of that, Airbnb.
I'm like, what is going on?
Well, one thing we see is we see people buying up, well, one, you should know that out of the foreclosure crisis, the same people that caused the foreclosure crisis and made all that money, they said, not only did they make money on the front end by the subprime loans and then stealing homes from Black and Latina families, but once those families were out and there were all these vacant single-family homes all over the country, right? You know what they did? Dirt cheap. They bought them all. They created overnight a new industry called the single-family home rental market industry. So you had companies like Blackstone came to Atlanta, bought thousands of single-family homes. So these single-family homes in neighborhoods, and I'm not sure what exists here, but in Atlanta and in many cities, you go to a neighborhood and many of those homes are owned by Blackstone, an international massive corporation, and they rent it out, right? And a matter of fact, and this is a whole nother conversation, the way they gamble and create financial tools like they did with mortgage-backed securities, they've created rent-backed securities, right? And we predict that's gonna be the new bubble, right? But that's happening. So a lot of these single-family homes are owned by big corporations. Mom and pops owning a single-family homes and renting them out, that is falling by the wayside. And you got the big corporations coming in. So that's one. Some people come in and then they use them for Airbnb, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
they-
on my street.
Okay, so, but here's the thing. Y'all gotta have a plan for your community, right? You can also, you could put restrictions on Blackstone. Say, if you're gonna come in and you don't live in this community and you're gonna rent the home out and you don't live in the community,
Right.
you gotta pay 50% of your profit to us. Right? You say,
Yeah.
you know, if you're gonna rent your home out, that's okay. If you live in our community, if you're part, then you're accountable. If you're an investor who's in Italy and you're making money off us, who do we go to? So that's a whole nother conversation. We have a report called Rise of the Corporate Landlord that we wrote to try to understand what the hell's going on.
So is that illegal?
What?
Is that illegal? Is somebody going in a court of law about that stuff?
No, it's perfectly legal and there's no regulation, but that's up to us to build power
create it.
and
Yeah.
to make it illegal.
So do we start at city council?
You start by organizing your neighborhood, right? And then where you can get hundreds of thousands of people from your community out there. But yes, there's solutions in terms of the city council could pass taxes, speculation taxes, right? They could pass that, but there's not the political will because we got to put some pressure on.
So again, thank you very much. We've got a short break and then we resume in 10 minutes.